More now on that White House meeting late yesterday between President Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The fact is, it was so low profile, it says a lot about the current chill between the two longtime allies.
You could call it the case of the disappearing Israeli Prime Minister, gone missing in the White House for hours. 5:29 last night, Benjamin Netanyahu arrived to see the president one-on-one, no aides. Officials say President Obama asked Netanyahu to compromise and get peace talks restarted. Unlike past White House meetings with Israeli leaders, this time no press, only underscoring the tense relations.
Israel's top-selling paper complained that Mr. Netanyahu was received at the White House like the last of the wazirs from Lower Senegal, while the influential Haaretz newspaper concluded that the Prime Minister leaves America disgraced, isolated and altogether weaker than when he came. Emboldened by his win on healthcare and angry at Israel's insistence on building homes on land the Palestinians want for a future state, President Obama reportedly issued the Israeli leader with a series of demands. When the Israeli leader failed to agree, President Obama reportedly walked out of the meeting.
This is the first time I can recall where we've actually seen a visiting Israeli Prime Minister in the United States treated very coldly, in effect publicly reprimanded.
When Biden went to Jerusalem, we know there was that kerfuffle, but Israel apologized, and when Biden left, and Biden's the best friend we have for Israel in the administration, everything was fine. But then what happened is, the next day Hillary Clinton called up Netanyahu and talked very tough to him, and worse, they made it public through their spokesperson, a guy named Crowley. And Crowley said something I had never heard before, which is the relationship of Israel and the United States depends on the pace of the negotiations.
All right.
That is terrible. That is a dagger.
And I believe that the Obama administration is willing to throw Israel under the bus in order to please Muslim nations. I believe that, honestly.
A good start in getting Obama is to listen to what he says, especially in major addresses, words he's composed himself in hours of solitary deliberation. Give a close reading to the Cairo speech of last year. In that address to an Arab audience, Obama made a great issue of the Holocaust and its important to human history, its absolute relevance to Israel's existence.
Around the world, the Jewish people were persecuted for centuries. And anti-Semitism in Europe culminated in an unprecedented Holocaust. On the other hand, it is also undeniable that the Palestinian people, Muslims and Christians, has suffered in pursuit of a homeland.
The other notable aspect of the speech is that he did more in 3 minutes to delegitimize the existence of Israel than any president in American history.
Now, let me be clear. Israel's security is sacrosanct. It is non-negotiable. And Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
When you said that, did you not realize the significance that that has for so many people in this region?
No, look, number one, the fact is that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. And so I was simply stating a fact. With respect to...
You said must remain undivided.
Those
are code words.
Well, the issue of it being undivided, I have said, and I said immediately after the speech, that word was poorly chosen. What I was referring to is making sure that we're not setting up barbed wire across Israel.
But Senator, it's a very simple declarative statement. It must remain, and you started the paragraph by saying, "Let me be clear."
Charlie, if the day after or the day of making the speech, I can see that the wording was poor, and it's immediately corrected, then.
Rookie mistake?
Well, I wouldn't say rookie mistake. I think that veterans make mistakes as well.
So there should not be a shred of doubt by now. The chips are down. I have Israel's back.
did very publicly say, we've got Israel's back. What does that mean?
What it means is that historically we have always cooperated with Israel with respect to the defense of Israel. It was not a military doctrine that we were laying out for any particular military action.
We've learned over the last few years how to interpret what the president's saying. So now when he said in the last couple of weeks, I have Israel's back, what that means is he's going to watch over the shoulder of Israel as they play their cards and telegraph to Israel's opponents everything that Israel has in their hands. Well, you do that not to a friend, but you do that to someone you're betraying. So I tell you, if this president says, hey, I've got your back, I know I need to be wearing something that will stop a knife.
We continue to emphasize that America does not accept the legitimacy of continued Israeli settlements. The goal is clear: two states living side by side in peace and security. A Jewish state of Israel with true security for all Israelis, and a viable, independent Palestinian state with contiguous territory that ends the occupation that began in 1967.
Occupation that began in 1967, that's weird. It was a war. They won.
Yeah, well, this is the most radical anti-Israel speech I can recall any president making. Two phrases in what you just heard.
Yeah.
The president says America does not accept, and I'm quoting now, the legitimacy of continued Israeli settlements, not new Israeli settlements, continued Israeli settlements, which, you know, this is Mr. Wordsmith here. That calls into question, in my mind, all Israeli settlements. And that ends the occupation that began in 1967. That means, I think, a return to the 67 borders. I think we've put Israel on the chopping block. This speech demonstrates to the Palestinians they don't have to make concessions. The president's going to take care of it.
The faux defenders of Israel always look ridiculous in the rearview mirror. Their fear of the words Palestinian state has been proven ridiculous. And their lies about what President Obama has said about Israel's future borders, and their personal distrust of Barack Obama as an ally of Israel is a disgrace to their cause.
And I think, as you know, President Obama clearly said he wanted to see an end to settlement activity. Now, that had never been requested prior to any negotiation entered into by any representative of either the Palestinians or the Israelis. So it was a new element that was introduced by President Obama.
Mr. Secretary, you made a strong statement about Israel's responsibility to make peace. What steps should it take now? Withdraw the Israeli army from the Palestinian territories?
No, just get to the damn table.
Referring to Israel as a cancerous tumor that should be cut, the Islamic Republic's supreme leader says that Iran will help any nation or group that confronts the country. Also, during the televised remarks, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said the country will continue its controversial nuclear weapons program, warning that a military strike by the United States would see defeat and would make Iran stronger.
My administration is now committed to diplomacy that addresses the full range of issues before us and to pursuing constructive ties among the United States, Iran, and the international community. This process will not be advanced by threats. We seek instead engagement that is honest and grounded in mutual respect. Thank you. And Shoma Mubarak.
One of the highest-ranking members of the Israeli government says that Iran is working on capability not just to strike Israel, but to strike the United States. Yuval Steinitz is the Minister of Finance, but he has extensive military experience. He's one of Benjamin Netanyahu's closest allies, and he told us just this morning that he thinks Iran could strike the east coast of the United States within 2 to 3 years.
But they are working now and invest a lot of billions of dollars in order to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. And we estimate that in 2 to 3 years, they will have the first intercontinental ballistic missiles that can reach the east coast of America. So their aim is clearly not only to be able to threaten Israel and the Middle East, but to put a direct nuclear ballistic threat to Europe and to the United States of America.
Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, these countries are tiny compared to the Soviet Union. They don't pose a serious threat to us. Iran, they spend 1/100th of what we spend on the military. I mean, if Iran ever tried to pose a serious threat to us, they wouldn't stand a chance.
Bombshell accusations that the White House may have leaked classified information to stop Israel from attacking Iran. New details are developing this hour on this, that the administration might have gone public, perhaps because their effort to pressure Israel might not be working as well as they would like it to.
A former U.S. diplomat calling out the White House after reports that Israel had been granted access to airfields in Azerbaijan, that's along Iran's northern border. Again, revealing such information could potentially jeopardize any attack if that were to happen.
The thing that makes it so reprehensible, in my view, is that presumably whoever it was in the administration who leaked it believed that Iran did not know about it. So let's analyze what we're doing here. We have an administration official leaking information to an adversary of the United States about the plans of an American ally to act in its own self-defense.
Their personal distrust of Barack Obama as an ally of Israel is a disgrace.
It was another attempt at compromise over Iran's nuclear energy program. This round of talks has been seen as a pivotal step forward after similar attempts were abandoned 14 months ago. Both sides need to take confidence-building measures, a large aspect of what these talks hope to achieve through a step-by-step and reciprocal approach based on the Non-Proliferation Treaty. All parties have agreed to work towards these means ahead of another round of talks to take place in Baghdad, Iraq, May 23rd.
Well, my initial impression is that Iran has been given a freebie. It's got 5 weeks to continue enrichment without any limitation, any inhibition.
But so far, at least, we haven't given away anything, other than the opportunity for us to negotiate and see if Iran comes to the table in good faith. And the notion that somehow we've given something away or a freebie would indicate that Iran has gotten something. In fact, they've got some of the toughest sanctions that they're going to be facing coming up in just a few months.
It would appear that sanctions are working.
Well, they're certainly taking a bite out of the Iranian economy, but so far they haven't rolled back the Iranian program or even stopped it by 1 iota. I mean, I hope that changes, but so far I can tell you the centrifuges are spinning. They were spinning before the talks began. Recently with Iran, they were spinning during the talks. They're spinning as we speak. So if the sanctions are going to work, they better work soon.
How do you know what they're doing?
Oh, we know.
You know.
We know, and others know, and we share what we know.
If the rhetoric gets more heated, if there's a problem someplace else in the world that flares up, then certainly it could drive these prices up further.
And so that is the unknown. When these shots, these rhetorical shots, go back and forth between Tehran and Tel Aviv, as well as what we hear on Capitol Hill, the people who are, making bets on the market, that's what drives the price up.
A hot microphone picked up a private presidential plea.
President Obama knows well that the Russians are furious over U.S. plans to build a missile defense shield in Europe, and he wanted word to be sent to Vladimir Putin, asking for a little time to smooth things out.
My last election, yeah, and after my election I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand.
I think this is one of the worst displays I've ever seen of a president on foreign soil or domestic. What he's essentially saying is, give me space because I have to act one way before the election, and then after the election, I have the flexibility to actually do what I really want to do. It's a pattern with President Obama. And I would love to hear from Stephanie. Can she assure us that the president's made no other statements like that to say Arab leaders or Palestinian leaders, give me space, and after the election, I'll have more flexibility to deal with Israel. Can you assure us he's not done that?
I think that the facts speak for themselves. Rather than this political innuendo and talking points that are being thrown at us, the facts speak for themselves. This is a sitting president with a strong foreign policy record, with a proven foreign policy record. Let's not forget the important piece of this conversation. We are likely running against someone who says that Russia is our greatest geopolitical foe, but in his famous foreign policy white paper didn't even bring up Russia to page 31 of a 42-page document, and then it was only platitudes. So this is kind of a
Is it the State Department's position that Jerusalem is not part of Israel?
Well, you know that our position on Jerusalem has not changed. With regard to our Jerusalem policy, it's a permanent status issue. It's got to be resolved through the negotiations between the parties.
Is it the view of the United States that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, notwithstanding the question about the embassy, the location of the U.S. embassy?
We are not going to prejudge the outcome of those negotiations, including the final status of Jerusalem.
Does that mean that you do not regard Jerusalem as the capital of Israel?
Jerusalem is a permanent status issue. It's got to be resolved through negotiations.
The fact is that Jerusalem is Israel's capital.
Seems to suggest that you do not regard Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Is that correct?
I have just spoken to this issue, and I have nothing further to say on it. Yeah.
That's the question, and I think there's a lot of people out there who are interested in hearing a real answer and not saying and not trying to duck and say that this has got to be resolved by negotiations between the two sides. What is the capital of Israel?
The fact is that Jerusalem is Israel's capital.
Our policy with regard to Jerusalem is it has to be solved through negotiations. That's all I have to say on this issue. Our embassy, as you know, is located in Tel Aviv.
So does that mean Tel Aviv is the capital of Israel?
The issue on Jerusalem has to be settled through negotiations.
An open mic during last week's G20 summit caught President Obama and French President Nicolas Sarkozy complaining about Israel's prime minister, according to a report by Reuters. I cannot bear Netanyahu. He's a liar, said Sarkozy. Obama, according to a French interpreter who was translating his remarks, replied, "You're fed up with him, but I have to deal with him even more often than you."
I think I've given you 3 good clues to what President Obama is going to do in this region. He believes in the two-state solution and has said so. He will put his political capital to making it happen because he wants to be a transformative president, and he will work closely with Secretary Clinton and her allies, including her husband, in finding the politically kosher way of making it happen here. Expect action, expect history to be made.
البعض يقول لا يمكن أن تتم المصالحة الحقيقية إلا إذا حدث تغير استراتيجي في عقيدة إحدى الحركتين. هل ترى هذا صح؟
إذا كان المقصود في ذلك العقيدة السياسية فأنا بقول لك بصراحة لا يوجد بيننا أي خلافات، والدليل على ذلك أننا في الفترات الماضية وفي اللقاءات السابقة التي تمت بيني وبين الأخ خالد وبين عدد من أعضاء المكتب السياسي
A major shift in U.S. Middle East policy as President Obama endorses one of the Palestinians' demands that its new state be based on borders existing before the Six-Day War with Israel. Listen to this.
We believe the borders of Israel and Palestine should be based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps.
This is a radical shift in U.S. policy towards Israel. You know,
Just a number of years ago in 2004, the State of Israel received American guarantees that at the end of the day, Israel would not be forced to withdraw to those 1967 lines, that Israel had a right to defensible borders. Frankly, the 1967 lines are not defensible. Israel today is 45 miles wide. You put us back to the 67 lines, we are 8 miles wide. The State of Israel can't be defended in those dimensions.
הסבירות שנשיא ארצות הברית בקדנציה הבאה יהיה ברק אובמה הולכת ועולה. אנחנו לא יודעים, אבל הסבירות הולכת ועולה. הזעם, ואנחנו יודעים עכשיו את זה בבירור, הזעם שברק אובמה מבטא ביחס לבנימין נתניהו ולמדינת ישראל בשיחות סגורות הוא זעם מתפרץ. ולכן ישראל יש לה עכשיו 11 חודשים. אם ברק אובמה נבחר, אני מוכן להתאבק כעת כשניפגש באולפן הזה בנובמבר 2012. מיד תהיה התפרצות תקיפה מאוד. ישראל תמצא עצמה במשבר חריף מאוד, כי כרגע מה שנתניהו צריך לעשות, הוא הצליח לכלוא את אובמה כאיזה מין, אובמה הוא כרגע כמו ארי בסוגר.
My fear is that the United States policy on Israel has so dramatically shifted. This is a policy that is inexplicable, very dangerous, very naive, and it has the Israelis quite unnerved. I've never seen them. I've been going there since 1973, and I've never seen the mood quite like it is. They feel that thanks to the Obama administration, they are completely on their own.